Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod. We've replaced Matt and Alan with Fiona and Jen. They say it's an upgrade, that's fair enough. We look ahead to the first round of the Women's Six Nations. I think everyone's really excited. Probably the best Ireland team in a while, I think it's fair to say, certainly going into Belfast and France on Saturday. And Jenny, I asked you off air, everyone seems so excited. I'm not quite negative Nelly, but I'm a wee bit more concerned. Should I be or no? Is this the time to beat France?
Listen, I think the playing France at home is going to be massively beneficial to Ireland. France also, they don't tend to start off some tournaments at the strongest form. Now, last year dictates otherwise. I was at that game, but they were at home. And also, like, this team have got some big scalps under their belt. They've been playing together that good bit longer. Camp seems like a really happy place to be. Set piece. They've got like all the tools on board in terms of like the backroom staff that they've had, again, that time together. You know, some players coming back from injuries. Like, there's a lot of momentum. It's going in the right way. And, you know, still I'm a positive person. So why not?
Fiona, the team has just been announced there yesterday. Amy Lee Costigan is the captain. Anna McGann on the wing. Ruth Campbell in. Back row, so competitive. Adele on the bench. Do you think it's the right team for this match? But it just shows how competitive Irish rugby in the women's game is at the moment as well. Selections across the park seem really difficult to make.
Yeah, that's it, Stu. I think this is the first time in a long time that we have been able to discuss who's going to start rather than hoping someone isn't injured. You know what I mean? Just the bench alone, even to come on, you've got Cliona Maloney. Enya Breen is someone who is absolutely outstanding. So that competition, even at centre, is showed you that there's huge competition there. I'm delighted for the likes of Ruth Campbell. I think it's good as well for these girls to be, I suppose it's her first cap at Six Nations level. So to be thrown into the cauldron like that against a French team, I've watched her play. Jenny will know a bit more about her being up in Belleville, but she is physical. She likes to get involved. She just is the type of player you hate playing against, especially as a coach. I've been in that coaching box shouting out, somebody stop her now. She's just immense to watch. So I think she's someone that's going to add. The pack is quite good from that WXV, but her coming in as well, I think is going to add to the physicality of it. So this French team, always the pack in particular, bring serious physicality around ruck time, around set piece at scrum, and having someone like Ruth's mindset, her, I suppose, killer instinct almost is good to bring into the team as well. So great competition there. Fiona Tude is someone probably who a lot of people thought might start. So it's good that Scott is doing that. And Amy Lee Costigan, like I said it already, like a winger as a captain, it's absolutely shows how good she is at communicating with people, what she's brought on the pitch. I'm not up in camp. Jenny's talking about a happy camp. When she was there, she always made camp miserable for me, Jenny did. But they seem to have a great time up there now. But look, she's someone that has obviously been showing it on the pitch, and now we get to see an insight into how good she is off the pitch, because getting that captaincy is absolutely huge for her.
Jenny, are you okay with a captain being on the right wing? Is that fine with you? But also whatever you were going to say, Farron.
Listen, it's a little bit away from a lot of what's happening, but like, I don't think you're given the captaincy armband without reason. So listen, there must be, like, as in, we're talking about it, looking in. If she's able to communicate well, keeps things organized, good conversations with the referee, she's got a wealth of experience coming in, like, why not? You would also expect to have like really strong pack leaders in there, because at scrum time or around the breakdown, like, you wouldn't expect her to be near it, which is where a lot of the conversations and abrasiveness kind of start. So somebody else will be given that role to kind of essentially keep the peace, make sure that the referee stays on side as much as possible, and that like we're understanding what the referee is looking for and passing it out. So again, like, it is surprising, it is unusual, but like, fair play to her, and she's been given it for a reason. So like, love to see it on Friday, and I think she's one of those kind of players that handles the responsibility really well. Like, there's so much pressure on her during like sevens time from pretty much when she started, like really young, to get like scores on the belt, and she did that consistently. She's one of the most consistent sevens players to ever wear the green jersey. Let's see how she kind of does at 15s and pass on that experience elsewhere.
And captain the sevens as well, which obviously stands for great stead. Fiona, right? If they're going to beat them, I'm just looking at their team. Arbez is back at 10. Falls in the second row, absolutely colossal. Sochat, Vernier, Koundé in the centres. You, if I'm right in saying, to not take words out of your mouth, this French team have under-delivered over the last couple of years, and then WXV won. Ireland actually did. I know they didn't play them, but they did much better than them.
Yeah, look, I think it's more from French standards and how they view themselves. They would have underachieved. Obviously, I think that game last year against England to finish up the Six Nations, they didn't play the best rugby, attacking rugby. I thought there was a lot of handling errors. They were very flat in attack. Their line out, I think they're the third best in the competition at the minute from statistics from last year's Six Nations. And that's very unusual for this French team. You have a hooker, that's the coach. I always feel like they pride themselves on scrum and line out time, and their percentages is down around I think it's late 70s. So they'll be trying to improve that area. I don't think they got much out of their maul as well last year, which would be a big weapon for them. So they would have had a lot of time together since that WXV competition. That's the thing about rugby at this level. In the men's game, you get to watch Munster, you get to see how these individuals are performing at club level. We have that with England because you're looking at the Prem and it's televised, but with the French league, we don't really see the women's game. So from me watching them tail end of last year's Six Nations, WXV certainly aren't the French team I would have seen of old with the talent that's there. They lost a couple of girls to sevens with the Olympics in last year's Six Nations, but certainly having Arbez back, there's a couple of players that have come in as well. They have the individual talent. It's trying to see now, can they make a real statement before the World Cup? And like Jenny said, it's the first game of the Six Nations. Ireland are feeling confident on the back of the WXV, are at home. So that's why I feel like this is a really good chance for this Irish team. I'm excited about it because it's been a long time since Jenny 2017, I suppose, was the last win, but they've lost since 2017. They've lost by 20 points every game since then that they've played or more. So it's been a long time where I'm sitting here in front of you actually believing that Ireland are in with a real good chance of getting the win, and that home crowd in Belfast will really push them on as well. I know they've been trying to sell out the game and drive that side of it forward also.
Up Belfast. Jenny, beating Canada, beating the Black Ferns, Scotland and Wales. I will ask the question. At Twickenham, Allianz Stadium, it was 70 points. Is that just a whole different, is that a stratosphere away? Could that not ever happen again? But is that just a no-go? And Stu, no, not a hope. As in that type of delivery from this 23 at all.
Do you mean in terms of Ireland has the potential?
Has this team just come on so much that can't happen again, if that makes sense?
I don't think that Ireland are going to be able to beat England this year anyway. This is a World Cup year.
Sorry, my point was, do you think Ireland could lose by 40 points?
By 70.
That's my point.
Sorry. No. I think
great. The reason I'm asking that is
I think they've shored up defensively. Defensively, I'd love to see them come on again even more so. You've got really abrasive players in there that they give you energy. Those one or two really key important tackles, not just key in terms of being accurate about it, but a dominant positive tackle. It sets you up and you kind of build from there. I think that they're much more organized They've played together that little bit longer. Now, there is a mix within this squad of experience and inexperience, but I think a lot of the time that kind of like fresh meat essentially can be really, really good for a team. It can gel you even quicker. If you're playing with somebody that lacking experience somewhat, your comms need to go up so much better, and that makes you a better player too. You're more cohesive, you gel quicker. So I don't see them getting an absolute spanking versus England, but like this is early on in the stages, and also you got to be aware it's a World Cup for England. This Six Nations for them, they want to win it, but this is I think this is a training ground of how they're locking in their team for what's ahead. Like I was chatting to some of the players, the English players, last weekend over in London that were playing in that final, and they are still not over that. That is still in their head at training in terms of like they let the game go themselves, and they will not let that happen again. Everything is set for them getting a gold medal at that World Cup, a home World Cup. No stone will be left unturned. So everybody is fighting for a team, and the depth that squad has at the moment, like they're going to be a very, very difficult beast to deal with. But sorry, that's all plus England side. But I do think Ireland they're in a really good place. They seem like, again, a real tight-knit team. So I'm positive that we can do a good job, play well against them. But at the moment, just with my kind of realistic cap on, I don't think we can get the win just yet, but we can have a much closer game.
Can I jump in on that as well? Yeah, just on that as well, Jen. I was looking at the stats the other day from the defence, and Ireland actually last year had the worst defence, as in missed tackle count, right, in the tournament. But what absolutely blew me apart was that by 25 tackles, they had the most dominant tackles. So in the whole tournament, they had 95 dominant tackles. So 25 more than any other country, right? So Jenny was talking about those big hitters. And what I find is, you were talking about the change from last year. Hugh Hogan has come in now defensively. When I watched that Australia game, when I watched the WXV, they look far more cohesive, right? And they're playing to allow those players like the likes of Nevo Dowd, who's leading that defensive line. Jenny would have played with her. She just blows me away watching her in defense. But I feel like he has done wonders in their defensive system, that those dominant tackles can happen and they won't be leaking in the center around that. So I think they've come into real good shape in defense. So yes, they had the most dominant tackles, but missed a lot. Watching them in the WXV, they just look so comfortable in defence. We saw it against Canada. We saw it in the tail end of that New Zealand game. So they certainly have improved from last year's Six Nations again. And I personally would be very, very surprised, even the great England, if anyone was able to put 70 plus points on them.
So after asking Jenny the stinker of the question, I'll swap it around and ask Fiona the good one. Is this the year to break into the 1 and 2? Is this the time? And Jenny doesn't think they'll beat France yet, but still, they could win 3 games, and you don't know how it works. Like, could this be the Monopoly year that they crack it?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like if they get the win in France, they'll finish second, 100%, or against France. Everyone the last couple of years has been saying 3 games is a win, is really good. I'm going to come out and say, I feel like with what I've seen from this team and the back of the WXV and the players and the competition in camp, that a really good Six Nations for them now is 4 wins, is finishing second. And I know they'll be setting that goal. They won't, obviously you want to win a Six Nations, so you're not going to be constantly verbalizing, let's finish second. But I feel like this coaching staff, these girls really, really feel like they can put their hand up and finish second on the back of their performance in the last, after that France-England game. They just seem to connect, and something is definitely changed in how they attack and how they defend.
It'll be really interesting to be in a Scottish, Italy and Wales camp. If they're like, all the chat is Ireland and how much they've, got better, they must be like, well, hold on a second. Why have they got so much better and we can get a scalp off them? Would that now be a scalp for them, Jen, do you think, the other 3 teams?
The thing that's really frustrating is Ireland were, like, up until a certain point, a dangerous team to play against, and suddenly we weren't.
When you played.
That's
She definitely means that.
Sorry.
No, even when I did play on the end of some
You were
spanking,
super dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, great! I'm going to get mercilessly and rightfully so destroyed for this now as well. Great. I think like it's I think we're back to where we should be, and there's still headroom. So we're not. Scotland, Wales, and Italy can no longer afford to brush past us. Not that they did before, but I don't think we had as many. We weren't as dangerous. And now I think we grew so much last tournament in terms of confidence, and again, or XV, and it's just keeping that momentum going, and then being again like kind of boring, really cliche, but you take France. You play your best, you be as organized as possible, then you train your heart out, aim for selection, and you go again. I think now it's like the likes of Scotland, Wales, and Italy are a bit more nervous playing us and have to be very on the ball. You can't look past Ireland because they're a big obstacle, and rightly so.
Fiona, any Irish weaknesses for you?
Just not weaknesses. I feel like the discipline at
work
times.
on.
Yeah, work on as my coaching hat. But look, I feel like they've some absolutely brilliant players. That back row, second row, we see Rue Campbell. So it's not a weakness, but I think discipline-wise, they're going to have to really go after that area and be very clever in how the referee is refereeing the ruck, especially because we spoke about how Amy Lee's out in that wing. So there has to be, I think it's Niamh Jones will be the one talking, and obviously you've Darrow in there as well, who's absolutely brilliant. But I'm looking at it and I love it, but there's a lot of players that live on the edge. So they have to be against a French team. They have to be absolutely clinical and really listen to what's being looked at. Now it's Holly Davidson, so I've no doubt in my mind that they've reviewed her. I said this the other day when we were chatting. I know they've been blaring her voice out over camp so they can get used to that. Get your hands away from that ball or whatever she's telling people. That wasn't my finest Scottish accent. Now that was my finest Limerick accent.
Was that an attempt at a Scottish accent?
But that's just an area I think this team, and look, I think they improved in WXV, but they won the least amount of turnovers out of all the teams last year in the Six Nations. I think they were averaging 3 a game. France averaged 7 to 8 a game. So certainly they live on the edge, but which I like, but so I'm kind of contradicting myself as well, but I'd also like us to maybe, we've a really good kicking game at that ruck area, just maybe go after it, especially against France, a little bit more than we have been doing.
A last one on this. I think Scrum-half's a big talking point. Emily Lane starts and Aoibhinn Riley, Jen, who hasn't played a lot of rugby. Obviously, it's great to see her back out. Did you think that was the way he would have gone and has gone?
Yeah, like, listen, when you're coming back from a big injury like Aoibhinn has, you kind of want to build confidence, and like starting a Six Nations against France, no doubt if she's on the bench, she's physically capable of it, passed all the markers and is good to go. Like mentally, I find it tough and was definitely like nervous and apprehensive my first big game playing back after that. So it's kind of a nice one to. It's a nice way to come into the game, because as a scrum half, you're assessing what's happening, you're seeing how they're defending, you're seeing where the gaps are, and then hopefully Aoibhinn gets on and is able to kind of put that in play. You've got a bit more time to be a nerd about how you're going to approach and attack the game. I think Aoibhinn was really unlucky after performing really well in Dublin. I'm looking forward to seeing her get back on the pitch. I think it's just probably a matter of game time went in Emily's favour, but we should see a nice battle there over the Six Nations, because there's a number of scrum halves kind of going for it. So it's not just Molly Scuttle-McCabe is also up there too, but I think the more competition, the merrier in something like that as well. You're pushing each other to be better, and that's kind of what you want. I think like even a couple of years ago, there was a lack of depth in some really key places. there still is in some instances where if we had one or two injuries, we'd be kind of looking a little bit sparse. But like having competition at 9 is only good.
And also like the likes of Derv, Nicole Fowley, they're not even in the 23. So sparsity in some areas, but great. Great variety in others and depth in it, isn't there?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking about the phase. I was gonna give you a
tear up again.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we'll move on. Wales against Scotland. Actually just went through it. Sean Lynn's obviously first time coaching Wales, the new head man in charge there. But like similar enough teams the last couple of years. Clicky George, Bevan at 9, Hannah Jones, Bethan Lewis. And then for Scotland, Lisa Thompson, Helen Nelson, Skeldon. There's one debut for Holly Cunningham. Rachel Malcolm's in there as well. He's actually just leaving Loughborough. So like, it's nearly a throwback of last year. But it shows that they're sort of settled squads. But Wales has been a funny old time, hasn't it, Fiona?
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, I'm just on Sean Lynn. I've started to read a lot of stuff about him. I'm so impressed. Obviously, he's been involved in Gloucester. They just won the 3 in a row over in England. But it's the mentality around how he coaches, and I suppose almost looking at that team as a family and what he brings to the table. Yes, I'm sure he's reading of the game, he's set plays, how he does that is absolutely immense. But I just looking at Sean Lynn and this Welsh team, you spoke about unrest. I feel like him coming in him alone would have a huge impact. How he brings people together. He hasn't had long to work with them, but his mentality around that is something that I've been looking up, and it just amazes me how unsettled Wales have been for quite a while. And then we had the whole controversy about the contracts. And being forced to sign him. There just seems to be stuff in the background. And him as a coach, I would imagine, just mutes all that and gets them to play rugby. And, you know, you spoke about Clicky George as well, Stu. You know, she's just won that. He's coached a lot of these girls that have played with Gloucester and Wales. So there's that added side of things as well. And they'll want to play for him because everyone seems to has the utmost respect for them. So while they've been unbalanced, and you're unsure, I feel like they are going into this tournament very, very strong, and just even having his personality and him around the place adds to those players. And also, as well as that, they've played a good year. Most of those girls have played a good year at Premiership Rugby. The standard is getting better and better. So they're another exciting team that we'll have to keep an eye out on, because, as I said, the background noise, I think, has been interfering with how they've played in the last couple of years. I think coming into this tournament, that's been parked, and we'll see a different Wales and a far more cohesive one.
For Scotland, Jenny, I looked through the team there, and as Fiona mentioned, a lot of them are playing Premiership rugby, and then Rona Lloyd's in France. So we talk about how strong that league is, which it clearly is, and dominant it is. But if Ireland have nearly overtaken them with Wales, or last year they did, and a lot of them are playing the Celtic Challenge. Yes, a few are across the water. But it is quite fascinating for this league that's so dominant, which it is, but Ireland have nearly stepped up above the other two.
Yeah, it is. Like, is the Celtic Challenge going to be the answer long term? I'm not really sure. I don't know. I think it's served well now because it was like there was immediate need for it. With the Celtic Challenge, I was talking with Fee about this, is like you get like really good training, high exposure to like other high level players, so you're getting pushed, you're learning a lot, it's really intensive, but are you getting enough intense game time consistently compared to the Premiership? No, I don't think so. But it's definitely filled a gap at the damage that it's doing to the AIL. Like,
we're not getting into this.
We're not getting into this. This is a bigger, heavier conversation to have. I think that the Celtic Challenge, what it's done at the moment is it's been positive, but it's a short-term fix. I don't think it's going to be something that can be sustainable, even for players. Like, you're asking players to go from one side of the country to the other, and like a lot of players, student-wise, are able to do that, but full-time, if you're trying to, like, you know, pay for it yourself. I'm getting into it when I said I wouldn't.
We're in it now. We're in it.
Yeah, we're in it now.
But it's fair to say, even as an outs, like there needs to be something between club and international. It's not fair. Can we establish that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm all for the Celtic Challenge, work related and everything. Of course, I'll say that. And I actually think it's really good, apart from some of the results. Yes, that's terrible. Yeah, sorry. As the results are too discrepancy. But what is the right thing in your eyes? And we have 5 minutes maximum on this. What is the right thing?
I think that there's a whole heap of stuff. You're going from grassroots all the way up. There should be, again, and it's getting better, a really clear path for a girl to get to a green jersey and how she does that. And it should be, the obstacles should be as reduced as much as possible. If she has the talent and the work rate, she should be given the resources to do that, and it should be as easy as possible. What players need, and what we've seen from even last year's Six Nations, is that game smarts. So you're playing high intense games, but you're making good decisions as well. And you need to have time to mess up and screw up. And the AIL to give you that, the Celtic Challenge will give you that as well. You've got more time than the Six Nations. You don't get hit as hard in the Six Nations. You're probably not playing against players that are as good. Eventually, they're building towards that. So you're honing your craft. We just need to give players, I guess, more time playing those 80 minutes, honing their craft, making decisions in terms of do we want to keep possession? Do we actually need to kick for points? All those kind of technical and mental aspects of the game that you don't really want to learn during a Six Nations. You want to be fairly definite about it, because you're playing for your country, you're playing in one of the most prestigious rugby competitions in the world. You can't afford to be learning. That should be done elsewhere. So I just think for us, it's, again, keeping that high quality training, keeping the girls together as much as possible, making it easy for them, but more games. They need to have more games. And that's my kind of thoughts on it anyway. But Hayes, I'm keen to hear what you think.
No, I actually am, because Fiona, I suppose from my eyes that the Wolfhounds have obviously won the last couple. Yeah. Yeah, and then Ireland have done better. So from the outside, I'm not a coach, obviously, thank goodness, it's a big tick. As in, they're playing a lot more at the high performance centre. And the Wolfhounds have won the titles. So a big tick in that front. But for you, at the grassroots level, it's well, I've got no players, and where do we go? So if there should be a middle ground, which I think you agree with, there should be something. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Or else invest in the league, Stu. Do you know what I mean? Look at the Premiership. I'm not saying that we have the ability to do that, but it's, even if it's just the provinces, I find it very hard to get behind made up teams. Do you know what I mean? There's established Munster. If you go to province route, Munster, Leinster, then you can enter them into the Celtic Cup. That's an option if it's very clear. So you're speaking, you're 100% right. But what, Stu, about the Ireland and the players and the talent, but what you're leaving out is they didn't play the league before that. So they are now playing rugby. So that's the improvement. And they're now training in that high performance level. So they can all train in that high performance level and maybe make them play club, or let them play club, not make them, let them play club, if that's what you're going to invest, and move players around and invest in that. So there's loads of possibilities there. The Celtic Cup, if you look at the scorelines this year, I don't know if I've seen 100-0 scorelines, 100 and something, 80-0. I don't know how much that develops players. It does, but you could get those scorelines playing in Ireland. Do you know what I mean? And invest in local people, invest in the system that's here. But I won't go too in depth into it. So yes, there needs to be a step up, and that competition, having those sevens girls in particular being able to come out and play. You're looking at the Wolfhounds. Stacey Flood, when she was injury-free, was unbelievable. Erin King's playing rugby. But I also know that Erin King would have been injury-free a couple of years ago and not playing 15s rugby. And, so it's now they've said, yes, get them playing. And that's what's enjoyable. It's watching these absolute talented players go week in, week out. And people will say, you're just invested in the club. I'm just invested in watching high, intense, good level rugby. And I think they just need to pick a direction. And then if the clubs, like the men's game, we don't have the same numbers as men. So I think the clubs will probably drop down to more of a junior AIL where the players don't play all year. at least you know that as a club, and that's what you're aiming for. And these girls are playing high performance with Munster, Connacht, Ulster. So it's just a decision we like to see happening. Then you have very competitive games then, and you're spreading out the talent. So look at it.
And we don't want two teams. Like you run the risk of having two teams, like then less players are able to actually play. And you can potentially miss, which Leinster did, the likes of an Ali Miller. Like Ali didn't get selected at Leinster years ago, went to Connacht, tore it up, and is now like the highest try scorer, the Irish women's team. And I think per game played versus tries, like the top try scorer or whatever. I'm not being as eloquent here, but in Ireland in general. So you kind of like, I think you're spreading the risk as well of potentially losing out on some absolute gems and giving somebody the opportunity to play. So there's no clean cut answer to this yet. And I do think that like the likes of Lynn Cantwell coming in to the IRFU is such a positive appointment. She's done amazing things with the South African women's team, not just the national team, but like all the way down to grassroots. And I would expect to see like more positive things and structures in place that can allow women to peak within rugby in this country.
Okay, so I should never have asked that question, but
I'm so sorry, Stu.
Just that pause. And
Podcast number 1. Oh,
yeah, I know.
You asked me Scotland, Jenny.
And I couldn't stop at Jenny. I was like, well, I need to ask Fiona. Right, Italy, then England. There we go. Last part of the pod. Jenny says Fiona or England will use this as like a trialist to the World Cup, so sort of like a knockout matches, as if everyone's so important, but trialing them, and then, but they'll still be good enough, you suspect, to win the Six Nations convincingly again.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I feel like basically looking at that first English team against Italy, they are going hard. They're putting out what they would potentially have as a starting team. I think what's good to see as well is that players that have stepped up in the Premiership. So John Mitchell isn't just going with, the tried and tested. There's a couple of girls. I'll give you Emma Singh was absolutely outstanding, and she's now got her we've Kildone. A lot of people obviously would think she'd start, and she would, but watching Emma Singh with Gloucester in the Premiership for the whole season, her kicking ability from the tee, from hand, her footwork in the contact area has been outstanding. So I think he's able to reward people that have put in a couple of good games since that WXV and are peaking probably at the right time, and that's where England can do that. They're too strong still. They would really.
Do you think they'll always be too strong?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, right, go on. We've had a great chinwag about the Celtic Challenge. Let's put in a date of when England will not be too strong. 2032?
No, I'm being honest. I feel like it is coming. It probably it'll be after the World Cup, but I really feel like teams are catching on. If Ireland
that's class for the competition, then.
If Ireland get its stuff together as well and have whatever we spoke about earlier, we won't go into that. But like you're looking at, I'm watching Irish players even in the Premiership. And they are absolutely outstanding. Like they are standing out. This didn't happen before. The likes of Niamh Jones is nearly player of the match. Should be every week. I watched that final. She was outstanding. You're seeing Adele McMahon. She's been kind of over and back, so she hasn't been when Sam Monaghan was playing. She's unbelievable. So I feel like this, and they're coming back for camp, and they're training hard back here. So I think the standard is getting better and better. And Wales are playing in the Premiership. So England opening up to the Premiership, open up to all these other players coming in. I think they've kind of got rid of that capped England thing as well, have they? It's not as strict as it used to be where they had their own players only had to play a certain amount of minutes. There's something there, but it's not as strict as it used to be because that inhibited the likes of Exeter buying loads of Americans or whatever. So I feel like opening that up, it means everyone else is playing at that competitive level, and it's that level of competition because people didn't lack heart from any of the other nations. What they lacked was that game intensity that England have week in, week out. So I feel like after the next World Cup, we will see a change in that England. And it's not people retiring. I think it's more teams getting better.
That's great. And Italy, Jenny, and your blue shirt there, they have a new coach. Will they play any different styles, or have I just chucked you an absolute one there where you haven't even thought? But what do you reckon about Italy?
I reckon like it's probably going to be a little bit of damage control.
Really?
Yeah, I just think that if you're, and I don't want to constantly be bringing it back to the England perspective, but these girls they want to be in that World Cup squad, so there will be no letting off the throttle at all.
Okay.
So it's just it's I think it's trying. They're going to go out and try and be as ruthless as possible for the 80 minutes. In terms of Italy, I think they play some really lovely rugby, really comfortable with ball in hand. It's just, I think if they get pushed back, which they did quite a bit against England last time, it's very, very difficult, even if you've maintained position to kind of like maintain possession to try and do something with that when you're slowly losing ground constantly. And oftentimes they hold on to the ball too long, and then it's an errant kick, or it's a kick that's very reactive and not planned and not organized, and England will punish you. So I think they need to be a little bit smarter with possession. Don't hold on to it too much when they're in certain parts of the park. They've got some talented players, but I don't see them troubling England too much after the 20-minute mark.
Okay. All right then, 37 minutes on the clock. We are going for predictions, and I'll give you 20 seconds to think if I say the team slowly. So, Fiona, Italy v England. Let's go. Sorry, Ireland v France first, then Scotland, Wales, and then the Sunday game, which is the champions, reigning champions, England against Italy. Which way do you see them going?
So I'll be nice and quick. I'm going to go Ireland are going to get the win. I feel like I think Wales can do it. I feel like Wales are going to get that first weekend win. I think we're going to see something different from them and a far more cohesive performance. And obviously, you can't doubt England. So England will win that final game Sunday. And
Jenny, are you going to be a party pooper, or you got your green of Ireland?
I'm going to be super positive. I think Ireland can do a job. They're more than capable.
20 minutes ago, you said
blue French jumper
win. What? It's an Italian blue, an Italian Azzurri blue, Hayes. I'm going to go. No. I'm going to go Ireland for the win. It's going to be tight. I'm going to
change your mind in 20 minutes.
Yes, I'm flimsy and fickle.
We talked around.
Yeah. The more I think about it, Ireland for the win, Scotland for the win, England for the win.
Super stuff, Jenny and Fiona. Thanks as always, and we'll be back next week. But don't forget to tune in on Saturday. We are up in Belfast at the Kingspan when Ireland take on France. Thanks for listening.